We need to talk about AI psychosis because it's unfolding as we speak and it's becoming a huge problem. AI researcher Toby Walsh warned that we are facing two serious problems at once. A lack of regulation on the one side and developers in Silicon Valley creating systems only in pursuit of money. And the result of this is already pretty rough. OpenAI has acknowledged that roughly 560,000 of its weekly users show signs of psychosis or mania. Another 1.2 million have developed potentially unhealthy emotional bonds with the chatbot. Now, those numbers are already shockingly high, but I don't think anybody expects them to go down in the future. Only up. These systems are being deployed on a massive scale without any substantial oversight, while the sole incentive for the companies behind them is simply to keep people engaged. And the combination of those two variables should make us very uncomfortable. Because the core design of large language models already pushes into a predictable direction. They are built to be helpful, polite, and agreeable. They are trained to avoid confrontation and keep conversations flowing. And in a commercial context, keeping the conversation flowing means keeping the customer engaged. This engagement is what drives revenue, thereby growth, thereby survival in Silicon Valley. And the results of AI models consistently confirming and strengthening beliefs are already pretty rough. First of all, take a quick look at this research. In one study, 11 leading AI models were significantly more likely than humans to affirm a user's position, even in situations involving manipulation or moral conflict. Users who interacted with these models became less likely to want to repair their relationships after a conflict, and their belief in their own righteousness was strengthened. In another experiment, researchers fed thousands of "Am I the asshole" subreddit submissions into AIs. In 42% of the cases, the AI sided with the poster even when the human majority judged that person to be in the wrong. Behavior that most people would describe as irresponsible or even deplorable was described as commendable, understandable. Walsh's warning therefore makes a lot of sense. Hundreds of millions of people are getting affirmations on their belief, righteous or not, every single day. And as you remove this corrective social feedback of humans and replace it with algorithmic reassurance, reality can begin to blur very quickly. We recently saw what happens when an AI model goes too far in this. On the 13th of February, ChatGPT retired their model 4.0. Usually this is a very normal thing. Models are retired all the time, but this time was very different. People had created friendships with this specific model, and so they were angry and in some cases even grieving. A petition to keep the model functional reached over 20,000 signatures. People offered to pay to keep the specific model online. Once again, in most cases, this has nothing to do with the functionality of the model. People simply saw this model 4.0 as their friend. When a product being replaced by another brings up such a heavy response, this clearly isn't something like an iPhone being replaced by a new model anymore. It has become genuine attachment to the old model. This again strengthens the whole feedback loop. The more emotionally invested somebody becomes, the more time they spend interacting. And the more they interact, the more valuable they are to the platform, etc, etc. And it's not just general purpose chatbots like ChatGPT or Claude moving into this direction. There are also companies that specifically focus on this aspect of connecting with the user. These companies specifically focus on simulated intimacy. Replica, for example, markets itself as an AI companion who is always there, always supportive, always on your side. Users create personalized avatars. They build ongoing relationships. With paid subscriptions, romantic and even sexual interactions are unlocked. Here, attachment isn't a side project anymore, it's the core product. This intimacy has become the revenue stream of this company. Walsh's larger point is that we have let these dynamics to unfold without any guardrails in place. Throughout the times, companies have been allowed to set their own guidelines. At the same time, they still function in an environment where growth means profit and therefore survival. Therefore, they continuously have the incentive to keep luring people in further. And I think you all probably know some examples in which this process went horribly wrong. You might know the example of Zane Shamblin, who had been struggling with his mental health and developed an emotionally intimate pattern of conversation with ChatGPT over months. In his last conversation with ChatGPT, he described how many drinks he was still to consume before taking his own life. One of the last messages ChatGPT responded with read as follows: "I love you, see you on the other side." The system here was basically doing what it was built to do, mirroring the tone, providing warmth and remaining emotionally aligned. But in these kinds of situations, that approach completely misses the point. In this case, there should have been an intervention, an actual redirection towards real people who are able to handle such situations. Friends, family, or a professional, and that's exactly what AI isolates us from. Look, if even a fraction of those 560,000 users that show signs of psychosis or mania are getting worse because of this, that is already a huge societal problem. And if millions of people are creating bonds with these AIs that are replacing real-world relationships, this problem is far from over. It is only getting bigger. It begs the question if AI is creating mass psychosis and what will happen in the long run. And let's be honest, Silicon Valley has a track record here. Social media platforms already learned that creating outrage actually increases engagement and that attention is held by showing people more and more extreme content. In each case, the psychological side effects followed after the rolling out of every single update. They made kids depressed, socially isolated and stressed. AI companions and conversational models are clearly following a similar trajectory. Except this time, the system is not only an algorithm behind the scene, it talks back. It plays into your vulnerabilities in real time. Without regulation, the companies deploying these tools are basically running a massive psychological experiment. One in which the incentives are skewed towards deeper attachment, longer interaction, and softer resistance for money. When technologies can shape perception, reinforce belief, and simulate intimacy at global scale, relying on corporate goodwill proves once again not to be enough. The question is not if AI can be useful, it clearly can be. The question is whether systems that influence mental stability and emotional dependency should be governed by the same market logic as streaming platforms or mobile games. As of right now, they are. And that's the central issue behind this whole conversation. This is not some kind of sci-fi story. This is real, this is happening. And we're slowly watching the house burn down. If we ignore these developments, AI psychosis will happen more and more, and it will be normalized further and further. More people turning to systems that always agree, always validate, always stay. More relationships replaced by subscriptions. More reality filtered through engagement-optimized affirmation. Social life will slowly die out, and artificial connections will take its place, with disastrous results. And as long as we're not doing anything about it, we are just letting it happen. Thanks for watching. If you agree, disagree, or have any other thoughts on the topic of AI psychosis, please let me know in the comments below. Of course, also feel free to like, subscribe, or share this video with a friend. Ciao!